Everybody, welcome back. So last week I was able to attend Abilene's State of the City meeting, and it is actually Abilene's 145th birthday this year. And so there were a lot of updates about what's happening around town, and that's what I want to talk through today. So if you live here or if you're thinking about moving to Abilene, there's one question that keeps coming up right now. You see all the construction, you hear about the data center, you hear about expansion at Dyess Air Force Base. As a realtor here in Abilene, helping people move here every week, I hear this question quite often. So is Abilene actually growing, or are we just seeing a temporary surge because of all the activity that's happening right now? Because depending on that answer, it changes how you look at housing, investing, and even deciding whether Abilene is a good place to move. There was actually a moment during the meeting where someone explained the difference between activity and real growth. And honestly, that perspective changed how one should probably look at this situation here in the Abilene housing market right now. I'll explain that in a few minutes, but first, let's talk about what's actually happening here in Abilene right now. As always, I'm Zach Vines with Vines Realty Group, your local real estate expert, and the purpose of this channel is to be your #1 resource for all things Abilene and the local real estate market. So like this video, subscribe to our channel, leave us a comment with any questions we can answer, and to get connected to me and my team, you can text me directly or fill out the form in the description below. So at this meeting, the city really focused on 3 major things. First was the data center construction. Second was major development happening around and across the city of Abilene. And third was changes happening in the housing market. The big headline project right now around Abilene, you can probably guess, is the Stargate Data Center project that's happening north of town. This project involves companies like Lancium, Crusoe, Oracle, and OpenAI. It's a massive project, one of the largest single investments Abilene has seen since Dyess Air Force Base was being built. There are currently thousands of construction workers involved, and the project itself is expected to continue building through 2027. But that's not the only thing happening around Abilene right now. We're also seeing development like a new retail development, including the Brady Creek project with Bass Pro Shops. We have improvements to the Abilene Regional Airport, downtown revitalization projects, new recreation centers, and improvements to the Abilene Zoo. So when taking all that into account, there is a lot of momentum happening around the city of Abilene. But when you combine all of that activity with the data center construction, that's where we start seeing pressure show up in the housing market. So if you're trying to buy a house in Abilene right now or find a rental, you've probably noticed something. There just isn't enough available right now. We have an inventory shortage at the moment. Recently, the Abilene housing market dropped to 1.7 months of inventory, which is extremely low. Last summer, we had about 600 homes for sale at one time, and now we are sitting at about 300. Over less than a year, the available inventory shrunk in half, and the rental market might actually be even tighter than that. Some property managers in town are reporting dozens or even hundreds of applications per month for a very limited number of rental properties that they manage. So naturally, people assume this must all be because of the data center. And yes, the data center construction workers are definitely adding demand and a huge part of it. But that's actually not the only reason housing feels tight right now. There are several things happening all at the same time. One big factor is something happening nationwide. A lot of homeowners locked in very low interest rates a few years ago in the 2s and 3s, maybe even the low 4% mortgage rates. And because of that, many of those homeowners simply aren't selling their homes right now. So fewer homes are hitting the market at the same time. Builders slowed down construction during the higher interest rate environments in 2022 and 2023. So we didn't build as much housing as we probably needed during that time frame. Then you add in things like higher insurance costs, higher property taxes, higher construction costs. All of those things combined are putting pressure on both the housing and rental markets. So yes, the data centers are a factor, and they're a big factor, but they're not the whole story. Now let's talk about Dyess Air Force Base and the growth that they're having. One thing that surprised me most during the State of the City meeting actually had nothing to do with the data centers. It had to do with something that could affect Abilene's housing market for the next 15 to 20 years, and it's tied to Dyess Air Force Base. The city talked about the future expansion at Dyess Air Force Base. Dyess is already one of the largest employers here in Abilene. I used to always say that's what puts us on the map. It has a huge economic impact on the city and the region as a whole. And the Air Force is preparing to bring the B-21 Raider stealth bomber to Dyess in the future. And with that mission, change could come. Thousands of additional airmen and their families over time will be moving to Abilene. So even though some of the current housing pressure might be tied to the construction workers, the future demand tied to Dyess could continue for years to come. And that brings us back to something that stood out to me during the meeting. And what that was that stood out is activity versus growth. One of the speakers during the State of the City made a really important point. He said that what Abilene may be experiencing right now is not necessarily unprecedented growth, it might be unprecedented activity. And those two things are very different. Activity can mean things like construction workers temporarily coming into the city of Abilene, short-term housing demand, a lot of building happening all at the same time. But growth is something different. Growth is when people come to a place and they decide to stay. Interestingly, Abilene has actually experienced this before. During World War II, so we're going back a ways, Camp Barclay brought thousands of soldiers to the area. At the time, that was a huge burst of activity. But many of those people ended up staying, and that eventually helped lead to the creation of Dyess Air Force Base. So the real question right now isn't just what's happening today, the real question is, how many of the people coming here right now will decide that Abilene is where they want to build their life? If that happens, activity turns into growth. So what does all this actually mean for people right now? If you're buying a home, it means you need to be prepared. We have several videos on that. Inventory is tight, especially around Abilene's average price ranges. Homes that are priced correctly and in good condition tend to move quickly. If you're renting, it means starting your search early is very important. Rental availability is very limited, and waiting until the last minute can make things very, very difficult. And for the real estate investors out there, Abilene is an interesting market right now. Demand is strong, but investors also need to factor in things like insurance increases and property taxes. And if you're moving to Abilene, the biggest takeaway is simply understanding what's happening in the market so you can plan ahead. So now from my perspective of everything as a realtor here in Abilene. Yes, the housing market is tight right now, but when I think about everything happening in this city, the development, the investment, the growth around Dyess, there's also a lot of opportunity here for people who understand the market and plan ahead. The key right now is understanding what's temporary and what could be long-term. So if you're thinking about moving to Abilene, relocating for work, or even PCSing to Dyess Air Force Base, understanding the housing market here ahead of time can save you a lot of stress. One of the biggest mistakes I see people make when relocating here is waiting too long to start the housing process. So the next video you should watch is the one right here where I walk through the biggest mistakes people make when moving to Abilene and how to avoid them. If you're planning a move here, that video will help you avoid some really expensive decisions. I'll see you in the next video.